In Chang'an All Stars, 5-star chick is a 5-star bitch. There's no spoilers in this video, so you can watch it with the peace of mind that I will not be ruining the story for you. So stay tuned, because this is gonna be fun mostly, but very educational. I promise you will learn something new today. Hello, welcome. My name is Tiffany, and today I'm going to review the New York Times best-selling debut album by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah, Chain Gang All Stars. So Chain Gang All Stars, at its core, is a story about abolition and love. Or at least that's what the author said when I went to see him do a book reading and talk last week at Columbia University. This book is a dystopian speculative fiction novel where incarcerated people serving either a life sentence or 25 plus years of imprisonment can choose to volunteer in this program where they essentially become gladiators instead of serving their original sentence. Prisoners have the option to volunteer into this program and fight other prisoners to the death using a wide range of weapons, from a scythe, like the cover demonstrates, to a frying pan or even a pen, but only one can leave the ring alive. And if you survive 3 years in the circuit, you are freed and you are granted pardon and you can reintegrate back into society. This program is called the Criminal Action Penal Entertainment, or CAPE for short. It is a live pay-per-view broadcast, and it has a reality TV component in there as well. So one of my favorite aspects of this book was the rotating POVs from different characters, from different spectrums in the story, from prisoners participating in CAPE to prisoners in just prison not participating in the program, to the soldier guards, to the protesters against, and the supporters for this abhorrent new prison sports entertainment system. And we even got to see a little bit of the people that are calling the shots in the background of these prisoners and their lives. Although we do get insight on many characters in the book, the story mainly revolves around Loretta Thorwar and her chain, Angola Hammond, or AHAM for short. Thorwar is a Black queer woman, and the story highlights her relationship with another prisoner in her chain, Hurricane Stacks, who is also a Black queer woman. So you know, my little Black queer self was just swooning at the love story that's in the center of such a gruesome, violent storyline. The author also highlights the racial tension between Black and white prisoners and guards, and how queer, trans, non-binary people are treated within the prison system. And I just really loved how this book featured different nuanced perspectives from different subgroups whose voices are usually not centralized in stories like this, and how they're affected within this huge, just messed up system. So this is a thick book, as you can see, like she's thicky or whatever, but yeah, it's a little over 300 pages, and I read this within a week, honestly. So that's how much I really enjoyed it. And it quickly, very easily became my favorite read of 2023. I actually read it many months ago, back in August. And since then, I haven't been able to stop talking about this book. I've recommended it to a couple of my friends who have read it or have started to read it. And my official rating for this book is 5 stars. It's a 5-star bitch, if you guys couldn't have guessed by now. Even though this book is heavily steeped in political commentary about the prison industrial complex system, it is also about abolition, like I mentioned, entertainment, sports, media industry, capitalism at the foundation, because I believe without capitalism we wouldn't have everything that I just mentioned. But I believe the author Ajay Brenya did a really great job at demonstrating all of those very complex systems without sounding preachy. Instead, he lures you in with beautiful storytelling. This book is written in prose, but it almost reads as poetry at times. And he also really cleverly uses footnotes, which is the first time I read a fiction book that has footnotes in it. And the author himself, when I was at the talk that I went to last week, mentioned that he initially hated footnotes when he started writing this book, but then he grew to love it. And honestly, I don't have a problem with footnotes, but I just really love the way that he incorporated it into this book, because it wasn't distracting from the narrative. Instead, it actually helped to push forward the storytelling while providing historical and factual context without distracting from the storyline. And I just think it was very creative the way that he pulled this off. So like I said, this book is very violent. It's very gory, like horror, scary movie levels of cruelty and violence, and just, it's a lot. But I mean, they're gladiators and they're killing each other to like the death using non-automatic weapons, you know? So yeah. But even though I was truly disgusted in some parts while reading this book, I wasn't disgusted while reading of the very explicit ways that people can die. My repulsion more so was around the apathy and the effort to just be willfully ignorant that came from the people that were supporting this shit. So we hear in this book from the audience, and specifically the audience of people that are not just, you know, passively okay with letting something like this happen, but like actually pay to go see these people kill each other in an arena and like cheer them on. Like, bro, this is not a concert. You're literally watching people get murdered in front of you. But yeah. So it's clear in the story that the government and corporations that are facilitating this type of violence don't give a shit, because clearly they are profiting off of it. But the regular civilians that tuned in every day to watch people kill each other had nothing to gain. So it was a little hard reading through those sections of the book, because it really shows how cruel and apathetic people can be, you know? And yet these are the same people that became obsessed with these prisoners and even exalted them to a celebrity status, which is messed up on its own. But we're talking about real human life and very violent, gruesome death here, and it's like that is erased once it's fortified and packaged in a way that you can just easily consume through your phone, your computer, your TV, wherever. In Chain Gang All-Star, society has become so desensitized to the violence and detached from seeing prisoners as real human beings, which is honestly it's not that far off from our current present day society, unfortunately. So I live in New York, which I feel like at this point I'm saying in every video. I mean, it's a flex, but I promise there's context. So I live in New York, and I live not too far away from Rikers Island, which is a huge jail complex here in the city. And it's known as the most notorious and dangerous jail in the entire country. So there's this misconception that Rikers Island is a prison, but actually it's not. Like I said, it's a jail. And the majority of people in Rikers Island are considered innocent and are awaiting trial or their day in court. So the folks in Rikers Island are doing city year stints, which averages around 8 months in custody. This is an important distinction because it's billed that Rikers houses the worst of the worst, the most dangerous, the most violent, and this is used to justify the brutalization that they're subjected to. And it's hard to make sense that innocent people, because, innocent till proven guilty and all, that's according to the law, our government. And these innocent people are being tortured by our city, but then we have our mayor that wants to paint them all as evil. So the history of Rikers Island is rooted in slavery. Richard Riker was a known slave catcher in the early 1800s. He would capture freed slaves here in New York, house them in Rikers Island, and then sell them back down south. All aspects of Rikers Island resembles slavery. This is an island that was built to hold maximum 2,000 people, and it's currently holding 6,000. So you can imagine the walls are crumbling down, the buildings are literally falling apart, and it's an island built on toxic waste, so that means that the water is mostly undrinkable. So with that said, can you imagine how bad the conditions are in Rikers for the people that are actually living there? The people that are imprisoned and incarcerated there. Not the COs that get to go home at the end of their shift. Like the people that live there. So these conditions are so bad that there's currently a case pending in court where the federal government wants to take back control of Rikers, which basically means that they think that the city has done such a shit job at handling Rikers Island that they just want to take it over and manage it themselves. So it would go from a city-run jail to a federally ran jail. A not so shocking resemblance to Chain Gang All-Stars is the prison fights or jail fights. So in Rikers Island, they have fight nights, which are very notorious and happens throughout the whole complex in different buildings throughout the island. So this happens primarily in the adolescent buildings, which houses 18 to 22-year-olds. This building is called the Robert N. Davenport Complex, or RNDC, and the girls have their own complex called the Rose and Singer Center. And prior to the Raise the Age law that passed in 2017, kids as young as 16 were housed in RNDC. RNDC is also known as Gladiator School, known for its brutality that young incarcerated kids have to endure while they live there. So correction officers would enact a program that involved betting on fights between these kids. Essentially, they would pick between, the kids that they want to fight, and they would tell one of the kids that they need to win, and then they would place bets on them. And any of the kids that refused to be involved would get extorted. I want to highlight the story of Kalief Browder, who famously opted out and rejected this program. And he was only 16 years old when he got accused and arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack. I will repeat that again. He was only 16 years old when he was accused and arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack. He was sent to Rikers. He spent 3 years in Rikers, and almost 2 of those years he spent in solitary confinement. A child, right? In 2015, only 2 years after he was released from Rikers, and at the age of 22, Kalief committed suicide in his parents' home in the Bronx. He was never tried or convicted for a crime. There are a lot of conversations happening about private prisons, how they are unethical and brutal, egregious, only make money off of black and brown bodies, etc. But the reality of it all is that all prisons are for profit. So take New York, for example. New York doesn't have any privately owned prisons. All the prisons here in New York are state-run and administered. This is, of course, with the exception of ICE detention centers. So incarcerated people here in New York State have to work while they're in custody. Shout out to the hand sanitizer shortage of 2020. Listen, the state of New York profits off of slave labor, even though these prisons are state-run. For some people, it is easier to wrap their head around slave labor in prison when it comes to in the context of a privately run or owned facility. But the real monster here is capitalism, people. Let's just be honest and keep our eye on the ball. Some of the prisons in Chain Gang All-Stars are privately owned and some are state-run, like Attica and Angola. Angola actually is the worst prison in Louisiana, some might argue even in the nation, and it notoriously sits on a slave plantation. Some of the slave labor in Angola include prisoners picking cotton while the COs monitor them from horses. And if that is not reminiscent to slavery back in the 1600s, then I don't know what is. And yet, ironically, people that have been to both Rikers and Angola say that Rikers is worse. All of the main characters that we see in Chain Gang All-Stars are in privately owned facilities. But would you still empathize with them if their setting was different? Abolition is a huge topic and one that has been co-opted by many different people. Most recently, a lot of white people wanted to prove that they were not racist back in 2020 by posting a black square on social media. And listen, hashtag I will never forget that. All the conversation back in 2020 led to many self-proclaimed abolitionists, but in its purest form, abolition is just an extension to slavery abolition. It is envisioning a world where there are no prisons, no jails, or police. The 13th Amendment makes indentured servitude legal if you're found of a crime, which is why we have folks down in Louisiana that are incarcerated picking cotton while the COs are on horses overseeing them. So abolition is looking to remove this caveat and finally free people of all bondages, because none of us are free until all of us are free. You feel me? Abolition calls attention to the flaws within the criminal legal system because the presence of police has not reduced crime or violence from happening. In most cases, it has increased it. Harsh sentences has not deterred members of the community from committing crimes, and they have not fixed the issues that drive people to committing violence in the first place, such as poverty, racism, or just the lack of basic human needs and rights, you know? I understand it's hard to envision a world without police, prisons, jails, because we have been conditioned since childhood. So it is known that cops do little to nothing to prevent violence and are usually called into the situation after the violence has already taken place. The NYPD is the largest force in this country and they continue to terrorize the city every single day. They are known as the largest gang in the United States. And please don't get it confused. Abolition is not saying that violence won't happen, because it will. Some may argue that violence is part of human nature. It's also not saying that violence shouldn't be handled or responded to. Instead, it is saying that prison, which is a hyper violent environment, is not making things better. Prisons are just a place where people are sent to be punished. And punishment is a passive thing. Incarceration is a forced experience, is something that happens to someone, while accountability is an active process. It is someone recognizing the harm that they have caused, acknowledging parts of themselves that led to the incident, and then genuinely repenting and wanting to make it right. It requires a lot more than throwing people in prison, locking them away, and throwing away the key, you know? Given the culture of the United States, we are indoctrinated to believe that punishment is accountability. But when you break it down, they are very different things. Also, studies from I'm going to read this because I don't have it memorized. Prison Policy Institute shows that 89% of victims of a violent crime prefer investment in education rather than prisons. 85% prefer investment in jobs, 83% prefer investment in drug treatment, and 75% prefer investment in mental health treatment. Also, think about it, like a lot of people that commit crimes never see the inside of a jail cell, let alone a prison cell, just by virtue of their circumstances, such as they're white, they're rich, the victims never press charges or sit through trial so that they can be convicted. And on the other hand, there are plenty of people in prison right now that are innocent. It is unfair for us to still be bound within a system that only further perpetuates violence and harm, and that at its core is rooted in slavery. Like, damn, can we move on? Like, can we find something better? Chain Gang All Stars depicts the very classic and stereotypical conversations that arise around the topic of abolition. What about the person that murdered my brother? What about the pain I feel? These are questions that were directed to Mari, who is our main protester and abolitionist in the story of Chain Gang All Stars. And those questions are usually followed with, what's the plan? What's your plan? If not jail, then what? I just wish the author would have taken his time to just go a little bit deeper with the conversations around abolition in the story. Mari oftentimes regurgitated very basic woke lines in response to these questions, and I think that her character had space to go deeper and involve more nuance into the conversation of abolition. Because if the point of the book is really to introduce readers to the concept of abolition, then why not go all the way? You know, like, we're already here, take us there. A lot of people don't know that abolition was pioneered by Black women who have been vocal about both the sexual and communal violence that they have endured. These are people like Angela Davis or Mariame Kaba. They have endured harm in such tragic and visceral ways, and yet they have decided that they need a different response to how they want to receive justice. The idea that this movement is led by people that don't know harm or pain is quite absurd. And that's just something that happens when white people take over concepts that they don't even understand. And this is why intersectionality is very important. Abolition is not an identity. It is a politic. It is a practice. Some might say it's even a lifestyle. It is something that we do every day to fight for a better world, one without prisons or police. And yeah, it's a very nuanced and heavy topic. And that was a lot. So I feel like we should take a deep breath together just to recalibrate ourselves. You ready? You know, let's go in. Hold at the top and out. Yeah, that was needed. That was needed for sure. All right. So a little birdie, aka the author himself, told me that this book may get adapted to film. When I was talking to the author while he was signing my book, and yes, he signed it and dedicated it to me. Okay. I excitedly let him know how I think this book would make a fantastic movie, and that's when he told me that he's working on it. So, you know, let us pray that it actually gets done. I also told him that I had an idea for the casting for the movie, and he was very eager to hear my ideas. So without further ado, here is my fantasy movie casting for Chain Gang All Stars, the movie. So the book opens with Melancholia Bishop. She is not a character that we see a lot throughout the book, but she is in my opinion, a very pivotal character. So for this reason, I think that that character should be played by Viola Davis. I mean, what can I say? Viola is a icon, a pioneer, a legend, a queen. Period. The for our main girl, homegirl, Loretta Thorwald, I think that Lashana Lynch would make a great Loretta, and Lashana actually played alongside Viola Davis in The Woman King, which I absolutely adored. That movie, I watched it twice in theater. Also, while I was talking to my friends who have already read the book, we came to the conclusion that Cynthia Erivo would make a great Loretta Thorwald. So those are my two picks. For my favorite character in the book, Hurricane Stax, which is, like I had mentioned, Loretta's love interest or lover. They're not, there's much interest there. I think that Keke Palmer would make a great Stax. Stax is a deadly badass bitch. I mean, this is her weapon of choice, the scythe. And, she is a fuck around and find out type of bitch. But she's also very lighthearted and provides a comedic relief that I think Keke Palmer would execute beautifully. For the next character, Sunset Harkless, also a very pivotal character in the story. I believe Oscar Isaac or Pedro Pascal would make great Sunset Harklesses. Both of these actors are amazing, but also they're very similar to me. They kind of even look alike to me a little bit. And for Mari, who is the daughter of Sunset Harkless, I would go with a younger, lesser known actress. So my picks are Alicia Pascal Peña, who was a season regular in the reboot of Saved by the Bell that I have not watched, but I watched another movie with her in it on Netflix, and she's pretty good. Or Jericen Guardiola, who played the main chick on The Get Down way back when, which was a show on Netflix, canceled way too soon. But I think either of them would play a great Mari. So yeah, so those are like some of the main characters or most impactful characters to me in the book. Obviously, there's so many more characters. And I really do believe that this book has the potential to be a great blockbuster film. I think the biggest goal would be to not lose the political commentary that this book spotlights, such as abolition and the prison industrial complex and capitalism, because we all know how Hollywood loves to water down and dilute the true message of things. So obviously, I really enjoyed reading this book. I will definitely be rereading it sometime, maybe in the near future. And if you can get past the violence and the gore that is sprinkled throughout this book, I think you can really enjoy it as well. So add this to your 2024 reading list if you haven't already. And if you have read this book, please tell me down below if you liked it, what you didn't enjoy about it, and if you agree with my fantasy movie casting. I think I did a pretty good job, but I might be biased, so I don't know, whatever. I am on a mission to read at least 12 books this year, which would be around one book a month, which sounds simple, right? But last year I only got up to 9 books, which is okay because that's 9 more books than I read the previous year. But this year we're doing a little better. I already read my first book for January. That was The Color Purple, because I went to see the newest musical film adaptation for the book, and I just wanted to reread the book. So a lot of reading this year. And if you are into reading or books, or if you're interested in more book reviews along this journey that I'm on, let me know, because I think, this is fun. And also this would be a great way to keep myself accountable to read. So, it's a win-win. But yeah, this was really cool. Read Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei Brenya. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.